After DMC, from the outside, it might have looked like we were all suffering, but we weren't. We really enjoyed working with Capcom. We really enjoyed working on that game. And despite all the flack that came, most of it came my way, which is fine. What was good is just the sheer professionalism of everyone. They want to do the best job they can. And we know that if we can go through that and come out, fighting with a good game, there's nothing that can stop us. It's a position of strength.
From its humble beginnings developing Kung Fu Chaos for Xbox to rebooting one of the most beloved Japanese franchises of all time, Cambridge-based developer Ninja Theory has faced its fair share of challenges. Although it's a relatively small, independent studio, Ninja Theory is known for creating large, lavish action games that tell engaging stories, feature unique worlds, and have satisfying combat. These pillars are the foundation of all its games, from Heavenly Sword to Enslaved to DMC Devil May Cry. These are the games that Ninja Theory's developers make because these are the games they love, and it's what the people at the heart of the studio want to continue making.
But in the current landscape of video game development, creating a Ninja Theory experience is becoming increasingly difficult, and it's something that other studios are also facing. So the challenge for Ninja Theory becomes finding a place where it can flex its creativity without making compromises.
Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice was born from this ambition. It's an independently developed and self-published game, and with it, the studio is hoping to show other indie developers that there's another way to make ambitious games with high production values. Ahead of the release of Hellblade, we travelled to Cambridge, England to speak to Tamim Antoniadis, co-founder of Ninja Theory and creative director on Hellblade. Across the next 15 minutes, we're going to explore how the studio is forging a new path for itself, how Hellblade bridges the gap between the indie and the AAA game, and how the games industry as a whole stands to benefit if others do the same. Ninja Theory's main goal with Hellblade is to revive the mid-tier game, which were developed on a budget much smaller than AAA games, but aspire to deliver experiences that could attract similar-sized audiences.
Yeah, we do want to bring back that mid-tier game. I mean, games used to be like that. I mean, all games used to be sort of that. Just think of Jet Set Radio, Parappa the Rapper, like Metal Gear Solid. They all used to live alongside each other, like Ico, and not anymore, they don't. Now you do have the big AAA games, and you've got indie studios, and there's nothing wrong with either. They're both, one's a blockbuster, one's very smaller, creative, ideas driven. I like graphics, I like sound, I like good production in games, and I do miss the idea of games that look great, feel great, play great, but that take some chances and that aren't 20 hours long, or aren't $60.
The idea of games that exist between indie and AAA is nothing new. In fact, many of the most memorable games from the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and even Xbox 360 and PS3 generation are these so-called AA games. Games like Ico, Amnesia, or Darksiders, among many others.
How long was I gone? In Earth years? About a century.
They were titles that broke new ground either through design or storytelling, but also had the trimmings that allowed them to exist and in some cases compete with blockbusters.
However, in recent years, with the prevalence of blockbuster shooters and open world experiences, the scale of development escalated dramatically to meet the tastes and demands of players.
The disparity between AA and AAA has become a gulf, and in turn, the health of independent studios has suffered. As these mid-tier games faded away, the developers shifted focus to smaller indie productions, mobile titles, or blockbusters commissioned and funded by big publishers. For Ninja Theory, however, the idea of bringing back the AA game space could be a salve for studios of its size with similar ambitions. Digital publishing has given developers more control over their games, which, for Hellblade, has empowered Ninja Theory to create a focused 8-hour single-player adventure.
Digital platforms like Steam, PSN, and Xbox Live, meanwhile, allow smaller studios to circumvent many of the costs associated with publishing boxed products, which means Hellblade can be priced modestly. And Ninja Theory thinks that these two factors are key to revitalizing the AA game development space.
The sort of disruption I'm talking about is not replacing what's there. It's about finding another way for people to create games they want to make and to find a niche audience, right? But so keeping the cost down, selling it at a good price, finding its audience as opposed to catching every audience is something that I think is healthy, and it doesn't replace AAA games or indie games. There's a lot of developers going under because they don't believe that they can survive in AAA and they're not set up to be indie developers. And it seems like the only reason people aren't finding this middle ground is because, well, for one, digital was maybe a bit too small on consoles for a while, and it's grown, so that's made it possible.
For many developers, however, there may be the fear that without bigger budgets and the kind of development support that comes with blockbuster projects, they may be inhibiting their own ability to realize a vision. After all, a smaller scale naturally means more constraints. Ninja Theory, however, firmly believes this isn't the case.
I didn't feel creatively like it was a step back. I felt like it was a step forward because now we had control over what we're creating, which you don't have fully when you're working with a publisher. It's always a creative partnership with a publisher. And the bigger the game becomes, the less you can focus on the game, around the principles that you think are important. So the bigger a game gets, the more you lose creative control over it. For me, this is a big step forward for us. We're making our own IP, which we own. We're making our own creative decisions. We're publishing it ourselves. And we want to disrupt a model that's out there that I think doesn't actually serve developers like us or games players very well.
While there's certainly opportunity for big publisher-funded AAA games to depict complex subject matter, the reality is it's a rarity.
The smaller budget indie space is where the most interesting narratives, themes, and characterizations are tackled. But these are also the games that aren't given the kind of exposure they need to catch the attention of a larger audience. Mid-tier games, however, are naturally more alluring as they often speak a design language that the broader audience understands, while grappling with complicated issues. In the AAA space, this marriage of uncommon themes with a familiar gameplay framework is what gave rise to BioShock, a first-person shooter that, in large part, is about objectivism, and Mass Effect, a character-driven RPG that deals with complicated social, religious, and political issues. In the mid-tier, we have something like Spec Ops: The Line, which explored the horrors of war and player agency within it.
The benefit of AA games may not be obvious to everyone, but Hellblade is a good example of how the types of experiences players have could diversify if talented dev teams are given the kind of creative freedom an independent studio has.
But Ninja Theory also believes that there are business advantages that will trickle down to the consumer, most notably in the ability to cut out retail and pass those savings on to the players.
The upshot, people might be wondering, well, what's this? Okay, great, well done, very smart, clever, whatever. But what's that got to do with us? Like, how does that benefit us? The way it benefits, I think, the industry and people, games players, is we've released this game for 25 quid, $30. We've cut all the costs, all the middlemen, and we're offering a different model. There's a direct benefit now, which is smaller games, cheaper, but that doesn't mean less quality. My hope is, and quite a few people at conferences have come to us and said that they're watching us because they wanted to know whether this works or not, because if it does, it'll be something they potentially would do as well, because I think there's a lot of studios out there where they would dearly love to take more chances and make interesting games for their audience instead of making their games for the publishers. So if we can make a success of this, we then probably share the success or failure, because it works either way, with other developers to see, I give them a chance as well. They have every shot of making it work as we do.
Why don't you join us? Maybe you too have a part to play in this story.
However, many would argue that the current indie blockbuster dichotomy is supported by market demands, and despite Ninja Theory's intentions and the thought behind them, there's a very real chance that the mid-tier AA game space may not re-emerge in the way that it once. So where does that leave the studio?
So now, next game, I don't know what I'll be doing, but I can't go back. Like, I can't not take more risks. Like, I can't do something that's not going to be challenging. I can't let go of the creative control to work on a massive AAA project. I like the camaraderie that comes with being a smaller team. I like how much you have to rely on each other because it's not all about me. Like, everything that goes on in Hellblade is absolutely the team, the people, the individuals working together. My function is direction, but I don't make the art and the sound. We've got brilliant people that do. I like that it's forced us to find solutions. Like we wanted to do performance capture. It'd be too expensive, so we built our own. We're constantly problem solving, whereas in a large team, you're constantly just drilling down and doing the work. You're just doing what's told because money solves every problem. I think we've achieved more than we imagined we could. And it's been like that with sound, with just the graphics, with just the game experience around mental health themes and psychosis. It's really amazing how much has been achieved looking back with such limited resources. And again, I'm not bigging up myself, I'm bigging up the spirit of a team of really good people working together.
Alright, thanks for watching. That was a bit inside of baseball, but I'm a huge fan of Ninja Theory and their games, so I'm excited to see what happens with Hellblade and their goals for the mid-tier game. If you want to check out more of Hellblade, we've got a review of it on GameSpot.com, and of course there's also a video review on the GameSpot YouTube page. Mike in the US is also doing another feature. He's doing a reboot on the mental health angle of Hellblade, so subscribe to GameSpot so you don't miss that. In the meantime, if you've got any opinions on this feature, Hellblade or Ninja Theory, you can let me know in the comments. I'm floating about there, or you can find me on Twitter @TimorH. Hurl your abuse at me on the internet. I'll see you around.